Previously, Shang Yi's group arrived to join the war against a corpse pillar, and they thought Synopsis was dead. Isabella tells that despite she forbade the cruelty against humans, they would still lived under a cruel tyranny since they were treated like animal in the demon tribe. Synopsis had spent his whole life searching for his brother, but he would only find one disappointment after the other. Because he never found him. However, when he found Shang Yi, little ray of hope appeared. Because the resemblance was overwhelming. Getting Synopsis happy because the relative he loved so much had appeared. When Shang Yi hears all that he thinks about becoming Synopsis' brother, and even if Synopsis gets back one day, he would still treat him like a brother. The next day Moto decides to stay in the dwarves' kingdom to learn more about the forge. And Martin was feeling sad because the king might blame him for everything. But they all decided to take that guilt. They say goodbye to him and went back to the kingdom. On the other hand, Roland managed to survive by having Raymond's blood in his body, with which he makes a ritual to call a dimensional door to the demons. But when getting closer, one demon gets out to attack him. That demon was the door pillar, who was the guardian of that dimensional door. And since he was no demon, he wouldn't let him get through. So he said that he was sent by Raymond. But he couldn't come because he was murdered by Shang Yi. However, the pillar starts to attack him. But now because he wanted to take Raymond's blood out of him. But in that moment Lillian ordered the demon to let him through. Since they had a deal. Once Roland already knew Library, the magic pillar, Biowit, the disgrace pillar, and Matoso, the sword pillar. Once Lillian knew about Raymond's death. She asked Roland who did it. Roland told her it was Shang Yi and one girl with a demon aura called Isabella. When they hear that name, they start looking into Roland's memories and ended up confirming that it was about the former demon queen Isabella. So Lillian gets happy because she was as beautiful as always. She turns Roland into a pillar for show her those memories, and she thinks about giving him demon powers. So in that moment, some demons start to appear from her hands, and they go in through Roland's mouth. Once all those demons are inside his body, Roland starts to feel a tremendous power. So he was so happy that he wanted to become Lillian's right hand, who ordered him to send soldiers to the borders of the human kingdom because she wanted to say hello to Isabella as soon as possible, and she wants Shang Yi to be captured to thank him for protecting her queen. On the other hand, Shang Yi's group arrives to the human kingdom, and they were happy so they wanted to celebrate. But Penny decides to go since she doesn't want her to be seen with them. But then they start to worry since the whole place was in total silence. Then some knights appear and they were going to arrest them by order of the king since they are considered traitors. They decide to go without resistance. So once in the palace, the king seemed worried and he was going to talk. But then Yalu interrupts, insulting Synopsis. But Synopsis, without paying attention, explains that he tried to help the dwarves because if the demon tribe would have took them in, they would have become much more powerful, making them a true threat in the near future. The king was about to accept his allegation, but Angus, very angry, tells Synopsis that only he has the right to work with foreign relations in the human kingdom. When Synopsis realizes that their friends might end up in jail, he starts to say that he was the one who convinced them to go to the dwarves' kingdom. So they only got him in jail. But all of them decided to take guilt. However, in that moment all of the teachers from the academy arrives, and they say they are all guilty as well because they convinced their students to go and help the dwarves' kingdom. So they should be in jail too. When Angus saw that all the teachers were protecting their students, he wasn't planning to punish them after all, but relegates Synopsis from his rank as captain. Synopsis didn't even care, so he does not object. However, Angus wanted to close Shang Yi's business guild because he doesn't want some foreigner to control commerce, since he knows he is being manipulated for someone from the demon tribe. Shang Yi worries because it seems that Angus knows the truth about Isabella. Shang Yi makes everything possible to change the subject, but Angus wasn't playing around, and he tells everyone that Isabella is the former queen of the demon tribe, surprising everyone there. But at the same time nobody believed it. But at the same time they started to remember that sometimes Isabella showed an aura similar to the demon's one, just like that time when she lost control in her training. So they confirm that Isabella was indeed the former demon queen. So every dragon knight starts to surround her to capture her. Shang Yi wonders how did they find out, and Synopsis, very shocked, asked Shang Yi if that was true. And he said yes. Once knowing that it was impossible to keep hiding it, Isabella decides to start fighting with her demon form, depressing everyone because they feel betrayed. Isabella didn't want to fight her friends, so she says that her only target was Angus, and Synopsis grabbed his sword and got in front of Shang Yi, who protects himself from being attacked. But Synopsis doesn't attack him. He was just protecting him and telling everyone that if they touched him he would kill them. Sato ordered the white dragon knights to attack, but Synopsis knocked them all out with one of his abilities, so the rest were planning to attack. However, some teachers started to help Isabella escape, so Isabella listened to them and she escapes. But Sato starts chasing them. Eli and Emery also followed her, but to help her, and the others remembered that she wasn't bad, so they wanted to help too. But Icy stops them because if they keep helping Synopsis she would have to bear the responsibility. However, she was helping them a bit. On their way, Isabella tells that she wants to go back to the demon tribe and take her throne back. She also apologizes with Sophises because of her he had to betray his kingdom. Sophises told her not to worry since they were family for him. But in that moment some chains catches Isabella and Yi. And then they get pulled. It was Sato who did that to provoke Sophises to fight with him. But then Eli appears, who knocks him with one of his abilities. Then some knights appear, but Nai defeats them. Miu tells Yi that all of his responsibilities were now in the hand of the regent and his workers were cancelled. Yi feels guilty. But Miu cheers him up saying that Angus would do it eventually, since a lot of knights were behind them. Nai and his master stayed to distract them. And once they were in the exit, Sophises thought about staying in the kingdom because he promised his adoptive father to protect the little king. And since both of them had someone to take care of, Yi accepts his decision so he could keep taking care of Isabella. Elena was going to stay with Sophises, but after a kiss, he convinced her to leave with them. Then Sato arrives with his sword for his long-awaited fight. Sophises prepares to fight, but in that moment Yi calls him big brother and promises him to go back to have a new life, and he says goodbye. Sophises was very happy about that. Then he decides to give up since his objective was a success, making Sato angry because he wanted to fight him. On the other hand, Yi and his group wasn't having a good time because they got across with some demons and two pillars who wasn't going to let them see Lillian. Everybody was surprised about Library and Isabella resemblance, but she explained that Lillian could give her a part of the powers she stole from her, making them look like sisters. After that the demons starts to attack the ship. Yi was very upset, so he throws a lot of missiles to them. However, BioWit managed to protect the demons with a barrier, so Yi, a bit scared, uses the maximum speed of his ship to escape. Then after thinking that they had escaped, they think about going to the demon tribe, but then Library appears with her real demon form. Isabella worries and wonders how she could use that form, since only the royalty should be able to use it. But in that moment Library throws a powerful attack to them. However, a magic circle saves them, teleporting them to Yi's ship. The one who saved them was Vasily, who asked them what was their plan. Isabella tells that Pillar Daculo is waiting for her in the demon tribe, so she wants to go since she thinks he is still on her side. Isabella asks Vasily for his help, who plans to help them a bit by sending them to the demon tribe. But the problem is that there was a magic in that kingdom that could detect people from outside. To be able to help them with that, he gives them 2 forbidden books where they could learn a magic that would change their looks. One to Emery and the other to Isabella. Before they go, Vasily gives both men a special magic so they could use it in a key moment. And with that everybody got across a door which sends them directly into the demon tribe. They managed to get in by disguising as demons. But then they got surprised because it was all very pacific. Then Yi sees how some demon kids were enslaved, since Lillian reactivated slavery in the demon tribe. Eli takes them to get them out of there, but on their way the kids themselves hurt him. And they escape to get back to their master, because slaves could be tracked without problem with a collar. But in that moment some demons appear to capture them for what they did. But while escaping, some magic captures them. It was Daculo, who takes the others out, but Yi, so they couldn't hear what he had to say to Isabella. Daculo explains that he is taking no sides, but he is planning to join the one who is winning, since the only thing he cares about is that his raven breed don't die. Because if for any reason Isabella ends up losing, Lillian could use the crow breed as sacrifice to create red stone for the gods. Yi angry tells him that other breeds and races can be uses as well. But Isabella, not knowing anything about it, asked them if they were hiding something from her. Yi had no other choice, so he tells her the truth about the world, scaring Isabella, since everyone in the Hulo Plains were like food for the gods. Then Daculo tells that the royal demon family has the gods' blood, making them the only ones who weren't controlled by the gods in the Hulo Plains. Then he explains that the war between humans and demons started because humans were the ones that created the most red stones for the gods' revival. So to avoid that, the king demon started a war, making a lot of people die and lowering the reproduction rate and making it harder to create red stones. That shocks Isabella since she wanted to stop the war without knowing that. But Yi cheers her up, saying that she did the right thing by not letting people die. Daculo said that he will help if she promises that the raven breed would not be sent for sacrifice to create red stones. Isabella doesn't accept since she wants to save all breeds and races, in case I didn't mention it before. The demon tribe is composed by various breeds and races. Daculo warns her about the gods. They are terrifying, and if she wants to oppose, the demon royal family lineage will disappear with her. But even so, she was going to try even if she died. If she gets killed, her descendants will keep fighting against the gods, because she was planning to have children with Yi. Daculo wasn't satisfied with that answer, so he calls her naive by wanting to defy the gods, and he goes. Once back, they decide to go straight to the demon's queen palace. On the other hand, in the palace, Lillian was punishing Library for attacking Isabella. But since Libby was a masochistic, she was enjoying the punishment. Since she doesn't want Isabella to be with Lillian, Lillian decides to forgive her because she was enjoying the punishment and she wanted to find Isabella to protect her. Otherwise, others would kill her. The reason why she betrayed her was to make her weak, since for some time she was always behind her. However, since she was so strong, she decided to make her weak so she could protect her. Lillian had used Yi Bei as Isabella's substitute because of her resemblance, which makes Yi Bei hate more Isabella for taking her love from her. On the other hand, Shang Yi and his group were going to the castle flying, since with that invisibility magic Emery learned with the book Vasily gave to her, it was easier, because the cast had an alert barrier. Once on an upper floor, they decided to go through a hole under the palace to climb it up. Once there, they meet with a demon that had excavated that hole. So when Isabella saw it, she introduced herself as her queen, which makes the demon angry, thinking that she was an imposter. This demon attacked her, but he didn't want to alert the other demons since they thought he was just digging. Isabella asked him why he was like that. Because he used to be loving. So to make him remember who she is, she gets close to him and she sings a song. With that, the demon get very happy. He recognized Isabella because she sang that song to sleep. So he helps them get into the palace and he introduces himself as Xiao Kong. He goes so he doesn't attract any attention because of his size. And Isabella uses a magic that learned from Vasily's book to share memories about how the palace is from inside. Then they use the invisibility magic to separate in groups to look out for the dagger Lillian used to take Isabella's power. Shang Yi and Elena enters Isabella's father's warehouse, in which among other things Shang Yi use a parchment to take all. Then they decide to regroup with the others, since the invisibility effect was about to wear out. But in that moment a demon attacks them, hurting Elena bad. This demon was Pillar Matoso, who could sense their smell humans despite hiding their aura. On the other hand, Roland had caught Emery. Roland was furious because they got in the middle of his way to become king. But Eli was going to fight for real to finish with him once and for all. Isabella on the other hand reaches her old room, and when she sees her parents' photo she asks them for forgiveness for having lost her place as queen. Then, when she was going out, an aura surrounds her showing where the dagger with her powers were. Going back to Shang Yi, he was protecting Elena by getting her into a capsule. Matoso, knowing that he was Sophisa's brother, he starts to attack him since Sophisa's killed his brother, Sword God Moxia. Shang Yi knew that he was going to use his speed, so he forges a very thick crystal where Matoso crashes with and leaves him almost unconscious. And since he didn't want to fight, he decides to escape and later tell the whole truth about Moxia's death. On the other hand, Eli was kicking Roland's ass. Roland was very angry and he throws many demons to kill him. But Eli burns all those demons and gets close to Roland, and with a lethal fire punch, he leave him injured bad. Emery is surprised by Eli's power. But it was also dangerous because Eli was getting injured and Roland could regenerate. But Eli was going to give him an opportunity to let him go back to his kingdom to apologize. Roland was starting to be scared since Eli had some white flames in his fists which made things look blurred around them. But he didn't want to apologize, so he starts to attack again. Eli would show no mercy, so he uses his most powerful punch. It was so powerful that left nothing around. Shang Yi arrives and he uses his drones to start cooling Eli, so his wounds wouldn't end up being that bad. Eli ended up passing out after using all of his powers. Emery was healing Eli and Elena, and then they would go and look for Isabella, but in that moment Lillian appears behind them with two pillars. She angrily asked Shang Yi about his relationship with Isabella, and he fearless answered that she is his wife, getting Lillian so much angrier. She gets close to him and starts saying that Isabella was hers. But when he tried to escape, he couldn't because Lillian was very strong. Then BioWit discovers Isabella's location, so Lillian was going to welcome her, but Shang Yi tries to stop her. However, Library blows him away with a kick. With BioWit's help they caught Shang Yi, and Library wanted to kill him out of resentment. Because if they haven't returned, Lillian would only think about her and not Isabella. Shang Yi asks Emery to escape, but he wouldn't do it because two of her friends were injured and would fight to protect them. Then she takes out a staff, showing us that in truth she was a cleric. So at most she could summon an ancient beast. Shang Yi on the other hand was going to fight with Library. He uses his new lasers and shoots them from his arms, and Library was so confident that they wouldn't do anything to her. But those lasers got through her body, worrying her. On the other hand, Isabella is reunited with Lillian, and Isabella was so mad that she wanted to kill her. But Lillian wanted to give her back the thrones while avoiding her attacks. But Isabella didn't want to kill just for the thrones, but also for killing all of her subordinates and her high priest. While remembering that, she launches some powerful attacks starting to hurt Lillian, who instead of being worried she was happy because Isabella was recovering her powers. Even if she were massacring Lillian, she would be happy because she was being punished by his former queen. Then Lillian told her that she doesn't know her full power, making Isabella remember that Lillian was a very powerful disciple of her father, but she didn't know about her powers since she never saw her fight to be able to get by her side. Lillian uses her real form, raising her power so much. On the other hand, Emery summons the King Wolf, Lightning, which makes her happy because it was a very powerful beast. But when the wolf realizes that someone weak summoned it, it didn't want to fight by her side. However, Emery shows her cute side and convinced the wolf to fight, attacking BioWit. But it gets scared when realizing that was going to fight with his former master. The wolf tells Emery that Biowit's real name is Russell, better known as the best cleric from Hulo Plains, surprising Emery with that. On the other hand, after receiving the attack, Library asks Xiang Yi how he could injure her since that attack didn't have any magic in it. Xiang Yi straightly says that it was the power of science and he wanted to show more, so he forges 2 drones with the same kind of lasers he used before. At first she could avoid them, but when a bit distracted, Xiang Yi damaged her, leaving some injuries, and then he makes fun of her. Because even when she looks like Isabella, she wasn't as strong as her. That made her angry, because he compared her with Isabella. So using her real form, she caught Xiang Yi's armor, but he was expecting that. He was already out of his armor, which starts melting and catching Library. Since that armor was an Ano mecha, Xiang Yi gets happy for capturing her, so he wants to kill her with one blow with his weapons before she raise her powers. On the other hand, the wolf betrays Emery, going to Biowit's side. She tells that when she was known as Russell, she was a cleric who collected 12 beasts in Hulo Plains, and one of those beasts was the lightning wolf. That destroyed Emery's confidence and she was prepared to fight. But Biowit was going to let her go since she was like a master for her for being a cleric. But she must leave her friends behind. So Emery doesn't accept that, so she decided to fight and uses an ability to disturb Biowit's limbs. However, it doesn't do anything to her because Biowit quit to her human body and makes Emery be affected by her own attack. Emery surrenders, so she asks her to take her as well. Biowit realizes that she was a smart person and she offered her to be her disciple, but Emery refuses. If she accepts, she would teach her every magic she knows and also to summon a beast equivalent to a dragon, which is the divine ancient beast, the Golden Daughter. That surprises Emery because the Golden Daughter is an ancient beast that lived with the gods, and it was a quiet beast that could cure every disease and could turn every enemy into a rock. Emery wonders how someone that evil could subdue the Golden Daughter, and Biowit accepts that she is evil. But that's how she is now. Then with the power of the Golden Daughter, she turns into rock all 3 of Xiang Yi's friends and captured them. On the other hand, Xiang Yi throws a nuclear bomb to Library, which surprises Lillian because despite not having magic powers, he was powerful. And Isabella attacking her told her that she was right. The man she liked was that strong, making her a little angry. And she starts to remember when she betrayed her love, and she tells that Isabella's father knew he had little time and he was worried about his lineage because all of his children born deaf. But one day her most beautiful wife was a few days away from giving birth, so he ordered Lillian to take care of her. When Lillian touched her belly, she got excited because the baby seemed to liked it. And then after some time, Isabella was born alive, and the Demon King was very happy and named her his successor. However, her mother was about to die after giving birth. So before that, she asked Lillian to take care of the little princess Isabella. Loser with a beautiful wife who is the Demon Queen, and my wife is Demon Queen number 13. After discovering Isabella's identity, they decide to escape to the demon tribe, where Isabella, meeting Lillian, begins to tell her why she broke her heart before. After the death of Isabella's parents, she became the Demon Queen. Isabella was very kind when dealing with her subordinates, surprising Lillian since she was different from her father, because he was very serious, making his subordinates respect him. Since no one approached Isabella because of her position as a demon queen, she was happy to have Lillian as her only friend. Then there was an incident where the pillar of the door called Beatty had killed a human, despite Isabella having forbidden that, making her angry since she killed them in a horrible way. This because she ripped out the hearts of humans to increase her demon power. So she decides to execute him for having disobeyed her orders. After that, Isabella goes to see the documents to make peace with the human tribe. But the problem was that the conditions for humans to make peace were too harsh. At first he gets angry about it, but she thinks to find a way to make peace, since Isabella does not want her precious civilians to die in the war. Lillian, upon hearing that, gets angry because she wanted to receive all the love from Isabella. So to take out her fury, she went to punish Liberty. In that moment, Biowit arrives and tells her that Raymond was going to betray Isabella, so she was going to tell her queen about it. But she joins them when she sees that they can make Isabella weak, so Lillian could protect her, and Isabella would only love her. Isabella calls her crazy, and she regrets knowing her, so using her real form, she plans to kill her. On the other hand, after the explosion, Library was suffering the effects of radiation. She began to attack Xiang Yi. But because of the radiation, her body did not work well. So Xiang Yi, taking advantage of that, improved his mecha. Then he planned to kill her with one blow. But Biowit intervenes, attacking him, but does nothing to him since Xiang Yi returns the attack, and Library shows her true form since her fake body was destroyed. Xiang Yi plans to finish her off, but Biowit threatens him, saying that she will kill his kidnapped comrades if he does so. After saving Library, he is surprised by Xiang Yi's power, since forging and creation of the gods have the same meaning. Xiang Yi lets her know that his creations are actually science. So Biowit, curious, wanted to know what that was, but she couldn't because she was not free because Lillian controlled his life. Xiang Yi explained to her in simple words what science was, surprising Biowit. since Xiang Yi was the person in the prophecy who will kill the gods. He was surprised, so he asks if she knows Vasily, to which Biowit answers yes, since in the past they were great friends because she was also a slave of the gods. On the other hand, in the fight, Isabella was winning the match, worrying Lillian since despite using her second form she was losing. Isabella begins to use human fencing and then thanks Lillian in quotes, because if she hadn't betrayed her, she would never have experienced living with humans. Then uses a powerful attack splitting Lillian in two. But it did not kill her since with her powers she regenerated her body. In that moment we see a memory where Dorona teaches Isabella the most powerful fencing skill. So she decides to use it, creating a powerful giant sword. Biowit when seeing that, she is going to help Lillian so she doesn't die because if that happens she will also be finished. Xiang Yi follows her and plans to make Biowit to join him since she was not so bad. In the fight, the gigantic sword separates, creating 10,000 swords so Isabella with all her anger throws those swords at Lillian. Lillian scared, uses a lot of magic to protect herself. However, Isabella put much more force into the swords, which begin to pass through Lillian's shield, doing a lot of damage. Then to finish, the swords fall on top of Lillian, causing a great disaster and Isabella, using a lot of power, ends up going back to her human form. In that moment, Xiang Yi arrives, who, seeing her naked, forges an armor for her. On the other hand, Biowit was barely able to create a shield to protect Lillian. But even so, Lillian was suffering from the swords, so Biowit was going to heal her. However, Xiang Yi begins to attack so that she doesn't. He tries to calm her down since he didn't want to fight. But Isabella stops him because they couldn't kill her because Biowit's body was just a container since his soul was elsewhere. Since Isabella regained the throne by defeating Lillian, tells her to obey. But Biowit didn't want to because she didn't follow Lillian because she was the demon queen, but that they knew about her. She plans to introduce herself. First, she tells them that she was a slave of the gods just like Vasily, and it was his fault that Biowit have that body. Lillian had her life in her hands, so if she dies, Biowit will too, and Xiang Yi, knowing that, wants to save her by defeating Lillian. But that would be in vain, since a special person will try to kill Biowit because he knows a lot. And Isabella asks about that special person. But they are interrupted by Lillian, who is following Isabella and Biowit. Seeing that they are distracted, makes witchcraft to both of them, messing up the control of their bodies. Then Lillian, worried, asks about Library. So Biowit tells everything and gives Lillian Library's original body, who was angry and asked to kill Xiang Yi. But in that moment Lillian eats Liberty since she was only worried about Library's demon power getting lost. After eating her, Lillian's power raises dramatically, so she acquires a new form, and she was happy because all of her body was beautiful. But in that moment her body starts to get destroyed little by little because when she ate Library she also ate the radiation within her body. Biowit knowing that told him that she would kill him if he doesn't cure her. But Xiang Yi told that it was irreversible since radiation effects were irreversible, so even if he regenerates, his cells would die one by one. Lillian orders Biowit to kill Xiang Yi, but she was undecided since Xiang Yi may be the prophet who will kill the gods. Lillian, seeing her like this, shows her the bracelet where her soul was, being able to kill her. So Biowit, scared, thinks of killing Xiang Yi. But in that moment the spell that Vasily put on him begins to activate, so with that, he captures Biowit with some magical chains. Then Isabella, getting rid of Biowit's witchcraft with her speed, attacks Lillian causing the bracelet to fall off and Isabella was going to pick it up. But in that moment a hole absorbs him. Then Xiang Yi companions are released. But Biowit is absorbed by the same hole as before and Isabella, thinking that it was Vasily, begins to worry. Then Xiang Yi helps his companions. But in that moment more demons arrive with Matoso in front, who wanted to save Lillian. In that moment, Darkulo arrives, who decided to join Isabella, so he tells Matoso to obey the authentic demon queen. And they explain to us that Matoso joined the demon tribe to take revenge on the humans since Angus annihilated his tribe. Isabella, when approaching, lets him know that she knows his suffering. But if he did not join her, his only option was to die. The other demons accept Isabella back as their queen. But Matoso does not accept it since she was accompanied by humans. When making that decision, Darkulo was going to kill him for opposing Isabella. But Matoso was not weak either since he defended himself from their attacks. However, he decides to escape, because they were two people powerful against one. Isabella decides not to follow him since Matoso's hatred was normal, and then the demon army welcomes her. Isabella orders to call all the ministers to make an important announcement, and within 3 days the coronation ceremony would be held. Xiang Yi was happy for Isabella because she recovered her throne, and she approaches him to kiss him, surprising the demons because they will have a demon king. She begins to thank him for all the times he has helped her. So for all that he will the demon king and they are going to get married, making Xiang Yi happy, since he managed to make Isabella fall in love with him. Both of them were getting affectionate in front of everyone, and Lillian was angry. And by still being alive, She did not want to see Isabella with another person. Xiang Yi wonders why she is still alive. And Darkulo tells him that Lillian is immortal since she is an ancient beast, and according to a legend, not even the gods can kill her for being immortal, since they couldn't kill her. They go to the tomb of demon kings. And after entering, Xiang Yi is surprised by the huge statue of Isabella's father. She tells him that her father put that statue since the remains of the old kings were in the tombs and he wanted to protect them even after he died. Xiang Yi is glad because even though Isabella's father was serious, he was also a good person. But the purpose for which they were there was to leave Lillian lying there. Lillian asked them to not leave her alone. So Isabella, in order to free her, orders her to tell her why someone as powerful as Biowit followed her orders. Lillian agrees to tell them since she lived long before there was intelligent life on the Hulo plane. In a forest, Biowit captures Lillian, but she was a small beast, and at the end she goes to the Celestial City, where, upon meeting the King God, he congratulates her for her good work and orders her to teach the lower lives about the magical arts. But since the gods weren't going to be there anymore, those 3 slaves were going to have a young master. All that because the gods were going to hibernate, and the one in charge of that preparation was the 3rd Sav called Ivica. They both get surprised because all of that matched with that they knew, but they were wondering who Ivica was. However, following the story, Biowit had locked Lillian down with some beast. She were there for some days. But when the place started to collapse, and once she got out she was surprised because the Celestial City was under a cave. Then she saw Biowit fighting with Vasily because Vasily had betrayed the young master. He betrayed him because the young master had created a weapon to kill the gods. In that moment the God King arrives and he was disappointed because Biowit was his favorite slave. Biowit does not regret anything, so she didn't care about dying. But Vasily begs the god not to kill her. However, the God King starts controlling him so he doesn't bother him. The God King turns her into a bracelet with his dagger, locking up her soul until she reconsiders. Then he gave it to Vasily, who was crying for what he did to Biowit. And Lillian, after waiting for so long, she finally could get the bracelet, managing to control Biowit, and with that they created a theory where Vasily only used them to catch Biowit. But it was difficult to believe since he was someone hard to read. Then, after knowing all that, they wanted to use the dagger with Lillian because they want to extract all the power that belongs to Isabella. But they had to do it carefully because they could infect her with the radiation. However, when trying to use the dagger, it didn't work, since it only worked with magic, so they try another way, which is by activating the forging. Filed. Once he do it he could see Isabella's power in Lillian. So using the dagger he takes Isabella's power from her and gives it back to Isabella, who recovers all of her power. Then they leave Lillian in the Demon King's tomb forever. Once out of there, Xiang Yi plans to build an army at the forefront to go back to the human kingdom to save Sophises. On the other hand, back into the human kingdom, Sophia's was being punished by Sato, who was doing it to make him fight him. Because Sato only finds a purpose to his life by defeating strong people. Then Angus arrives and orders Sophises to join him. Sophises didn't want to since he was loyal only to his king, and he starts to make Angus remember all the bad things he has done. Angus angrily asks him how did he know all that. Sophises says that when Xiang Yi healed him with the red stone he saw the truth about the world, and now he knows why his adoptive father killed himself. Sophises will continue to support the little king because he thinks that one day with his people's help, they will rebel against the gods to kill them. When Angus hears that he starts to laugh. And to demonstrate him how fearful the gods are, he shows him how they can kill them. With the red stones he has, Angus creates a human life, making it grow until reach adulthood to then kill him with no effort, since he was his creation. With that, he made him see that the gods, being their creators, they could kill them effortlessly. And the reason he didn't make peace with the demons was to keep the war going. That would make the gods going to hibernation again, since they wouldn't find enough lives because of the war. Yet he had to keep the gods with the little lives they had. When Sophises hears all that he gets in shock because Angus seemed to be the good guy for protecting his breed from the gods. Then Angus leaves him to process everything and decides to go with his army to attack the demon tribe. The Thorn Queen saw everything and she goes to inform Isabella. On the other hand, Betty was escaping from the demon tribe since Isabella was the demon queen again. But then, some semi-human appear. They wanted to kill Betty for killing their generals, and Matoso had joined them. On the other hand, in the demon tribe, everyone was preparing to celebrate the wedding of the demon kings. At the end the spouses arrive, where, after everything which normally happens in a wedding, these two are officially married, making all the demons happy. Emery, seeing Isabella like this, throws a hint at Eli so that they get married one day. But just like every man, he did not understand. Then they celebrate with a big party all day. So at nightfall Xiang Yi takes his wife to his room to be alone, where they start to remember the good and bad times. But to stop talking, they decide to continue with the wedding night, where we see that our Xiang Yi with a lot of effort finally slept with Isabella. After finishing, Xiang Yi finds himself in a dark place, where, when he sees ahead, he is scared because it was a god. but he realizes that he looked a bit like Isabella. In that, the god of nothingness opens his mouth to swallow Yi. But in that moment, he wakes up scared. However, seeing Isabella, he asks why she was in her human form. She explains that the women of the demon royal family, the first time, they transfer the demon power to her husband. That is why Yi now became a true demon king, surprising him since he can even fly. In that moment, Dot tells her that she had a strange dream with a god that looked like her, astonishing Isabella since that god was known as the founder and Yi was the only person to dream of the founder. This makes Isabella happy because Yi was accepted by his ancestors. But in that moment, the message from the Thorn Queen arrives telling them everything. Knowing that Angus wants to start a war, both of them decide to prepare. But before that, Yi was wondering how strong Angus was. Isabella knew that he was strong since he was able to defeat the former demon king. But now they had Yi, who can win as he was chosen by the founder. Then after some time, Yi already had everything ready to start the war, where he also had transmitters since communication is vital in war. Elena was worried that Angus could threaten to kill Sophisis, but they told him that he will not do it because he had not started a war. Yi using technology introduces himself before the human army, and he asks them to stop the war since he does not want innocent people to die. However, Sato lets him know that they will not stop. So being that the answer, Yi started the war where using warplanes he begins his attack. They were killing the knights since the projectiles were very fast. However, Sato destroys the planes with his chains. Darkulo is surprised by how Yi had created so many powerful weapons in a single night. Because with that they were terrorizing the knights from the human kingdom. The knights, despite the fact that they kept falling, did not stop. But Yi with some tanks begins to kill most of the knights to stop the advance. However, some captains use magical barriers to protect them from the tanks, and then they separated on each side to surround the demon army. But Yi expecting that, he had created some traps where many of the knights went falling and ended up dying, scaring the others because although they dodged the traps, more kept appearing. A captain with his powers wanted to destroy those traps, but he couldn't since they were made of useless wood. In that moment, Buri arrives, who orders to continue forward. And this, because they wanted to use them as bait to get closer to the demons. Out of nowhere, something locks up many knights. And being so dark, the demons take advantage of that to start attacking them, killing more knights. The captain, to protect them, activates a magical barrier, driving away the demons. But in that moment they receive an order from Yi which was to withdraw since the reinforcement was arriving. This was the demon Shao Kong with which he begins to kill many knights with his tremendous power. So breaking the formation, they escape, where another captain despite losing many knights was already about to arrive where the army of the demons were. But Yi made them get too close to use a new and more powerful weapon. And in a blink of an eye, he started to kill many knights, scaring even the captains who were watching Yi's powers. Yi in that moment remembers that he didn't want to start a war since he wanted to calm everything down by talking to the humans. If that didn't happen, he would have no choice but to fight. But he felt bad because he saw that the humans did not want to go to war. But Angus, by making a plot, forced them to go. Isabella is happy for having chosen Yi. Although he is powerful, he seeks the well-being of his people and Yi, at the end of the war, plans to apologize to Sophisis for what he is doing. The captains saving themselves from the attack from before. They launched to attack Darkulo and Eli, but being stronger, they managed to neutralize their attacks. Eli was going to give the final blow, but Angus's relatives arrived to fight against him. And the relatives begin to call Eli a traitor for being with the demons. Eli asks to keep the knights away to avoid many deaths. But the captains, angry to hear that he is a traitor, were going to continue fighting for their kingdom. In that moment, the captains called the War Griffin, which are a group of humans who are considered the strongest of the human kingdom. When the War Griffin arrived, the regent's family were confident. They thought they already had the one. But Darkulo using a powerful form, he caught the humans in a sphere of infinite darkness. Within the sphere the regent's family, seeing nothing, they were attacking themselves. But in that moment Darkulo begins to massacre them. They are very afraid, and they start to look for the exit. On the other hand, the War Griffins were being protected by powerful priests. With this, they thought they had the advantage. But the demon air force commanded by Isabella arrives. And they begin to massacre the War Griffins since Emery was also helping. Protecting the demons, they were excited to see that they were winning the war and Elena wonders why the regent did nothing. Elena, seeing that the human kingdom was being massacred, seems to be going to help them because she leaves her position as commander given to her by Yi. Angus on the other hand wasn't doing anything because he was waiting for Yi. And his wait paid off, since Yi and Isabella wanted to talk with Angus. But before that they show that they have his 3 captains and family in custody and they were about to die, since Darkulo had massacred them. Angus, using part of his dragon form, goes to see them in person, where he showed them a lot of red stones he had, scaring them a bit. Angus start telling them how he took control of every of Shang Yi's properties. Even his workers had betrayed him, becoming Angus's minions. But since Shang Yi had talent, Angus swears to them that he would give them everything back and to go back to the kingdom. And one day becoming king of the humans. That made Shang Yi laugh, since Angus's true objective is to become king. While Shang Yi was just a subject, Angus tells that he doesn't want to be king, since he already knew all of the god kings. Facets in the human kingdom was built when the gods still dominated everything, from the gods' point of view. Everything on Hulo Plains was just like ants. And even when every breed built its own empire, the gods saw them just like little ants, easy to kill. And even if they don't believe him, Angus says that he does everything for the humans' well-being, to keep the gods sleeping and minimizing the need of more sacrifices. Isabella says that maybe she could have done the same before. But now they had a new hope. And it was Shang Yi. He was the prophet who would kill the gods. Angus laughs and start attacking them to show them that they are not as strong as they think they are. But Shang Yi, when defending himself, astonishes Angus because he was very powerful. Then he forges a Demon King-style armor, and to keep Isabella out of danger, he sends her to direct the war. Angus finally accepts how strong Shang Yi is, so he does not plan to hold back, and using his divine field ability, he starts to land a few good hits on Shang Yi. But in an opportunity, he parries Angus's attacks. Angus, angry, changes the color of his divine field, making it stronger. So Shang Yi begins to beat him again. Being able to resist those blows, he waits for an opening. So when he has one, he begins to attack him with his lasers. But since Angus changes color again, he raises his strength. So Shang Yi tries to escape the divine field, but that field chased its enemies, putting them back inside. In that moment, the divine field's color changes, making Shang Yi's armor melt. But still, he could still fight. Then he realizes that the divine field wasn't getting better, but every color represented a specific function. And that function only lasted for 20 seconds. So thinking about that and knowing that this ability had a cooldown process, he forges a nuclear bomb. And after a few seconds he throws it to the regent. The explosion was so big that even the knights of the human kingdom were worried that Angus had died, and then we see that Shang Yi was able to escape from the explosion. He tells everyone that he killed Angus, since until now no one had been able to survive his nuclear bomb. But in that moment it starts to snow, causing the knights to start disintegrating, so Darkulo, knowing that it is a dangerous ability from Angus, he covers his comrades in a sphere. Within the Nevada zone all the people were dying, and even Shang Yi's weapons were disintegrating. So Shang Yi gives the order to not get close. All that was made by Angus, changing his divine field color. He was still alive even after receiving that nuclear bomb. Darkulo knew about that technique, since in the ancient war with humans, Angus used the same ability, killing almost all the demons, so Isabella's father had to intervene. Angus, even though he wanted to fight, he was no rival for the Demon King. But using the snowy area he was able to fight as equals against a Demon King. Angus, after a single fist, destroys Darkulo's sphere, and the three of them were fighting together. But they couldn't even scratch Angus. Shang Yi again uses a nuclear bomb, but it was disintegrated by Angus, and Darkulo uses his raven form, increasing his strength, since he wants to kill him since the day he met him. However, he was no match for Angus, since he turns Darkulo into ashes, scaring him. From now Angus was stronger than the deceased Demon King. Then with his power he traps Shang Yi, who, in that moment, sees that Angus only had few red stones left, since he had used many to protect himself from Darkulo's attacks. Angus with a blow makes him go back and then again try to change the color of the divine field. But Shang Yi was prepared and uses his forge field, which is stronger, having the power of the Demon King. With his new power, he begins to forge useless wood, trapping Angus in a sphere of several layers. Angus was destroying the useless wood, but it kept appearing, and in that moment, next to him a Tsar bomb appears. This bomb caused the biggest man-made explosion in its entire history. So using that against Angus, it created a huge explosion that even destroyed 30 layers of useless wood. Everyone who saw that explosion freaks out, since they had never seen it before. Seeing such destructive power, they wondered if the regent was still alive. Even Sato was afraid that the regent could have died, and the knights full of fear began to escape. Shang Yi, not knowing the capacity of that bomb, almost got caught in the explosion. But he could save himself. In that moment Darkulo arrives, who could survive by a hair, but he has a fur that allowed him to keep fighting. Darkulo couldn't feel any vital sign coming from Angus, so he thought they had won the war. But Angus appears, and he was using his dragon form. Angus wanted to recruit Shang Yi before, but seeing how dangerous he was, he decides to kill him. So once he grew stronger, he starts to beat Shang Yi. Shang Yi wonders how he could protect himself, because he at least should be under the effects of radiation. But before he couldn't even finish his thoughts, Angus caught him. Shang Yi manages to get free with his Demon King power. But Angus begins to make fun of him, since at least Angus seeks the prosperity of humans, while Shang Yi only talks about killing the gods without promising anything, and angrily catches Shang Yi again. Shang Yi, deducing that Angus used 3 red stones to protect himself from the explosion, thought that now he only had one left. But Angus tells him that he is wrong, since he did not use them to protect himself but to return the attack. Xiang Yi begins to get scared. And Isabella has been worried about. She goes to help him. But Elena betrays them by starting to attack Isabella. When Elena catches Isabella, she tells her that she is on Angus's side, since he has always given his life to protect the human race. Also, she knew that Xiang Yi was not Sophis's brother. And in that moment Angus changes his divine field stopping time. Where even Darkulo is affected by it because he is not that strong. Angus tells Xiang Yi that he was able to save himself from the explosion since he used the red stones to use his black divine field, which absorbs attacks and he accumulates them. With all the power that the black divine field accumulated, he plans to use it to kill Xiang Yi, and Isabella wanted to go help him. But Elena would not let her pass. Angus places the black divine field inside Xiang Yi, making him feel a weird sensation all over his body. Isabella, despite being hurt, she could keep moving to help him. But it was too late because Xiang Yi starts to turn into ashes. So apologizing with Isabella for not being able to keep fighting, he dies and his body disintegrates. Well guys, I'm sorry to inform that there are not enough chapters for a next part, so you would have to wait a couple of months. So if you want a next chapter in the near future, comment below with the word wife also. Don't forget to like, subscribe and ring the bell. Comment what other man would you like me to resume for you in the next video.